Welcome back to Metals, Money, and Markets, week ending June 16th, 2017. With me, as always, Mickey Fulp, the Mercenary Geologist, and for miningclips.com, I'm Rob Goodman. We'll make you a couple big pieces of news here. I think Yellen raising rates on Wednesday, and then more importantly, probably telegraphing another one. And then later in the day today, you got Amazon taking out Whole Foods. So quite a bit of impacting news to these markets.
Well, it certainly was, although the markets didn't really move that much as it was all told. But gold had an interesting week. In fact, most of the precious metals did. They were mostly off over the week, but they got really volatile on Wednesday when the FMOC did the rate hike everybody had already baked in. Gold surged, and then Yellen came in a couple hours later and gave a very hawkish statement that you referred to, and gold went right back down. In fact, ended the day at a loss. So for the week, 1255 lost almost 1%. Silver, the big loser, lost almost 3% to 1667. Platinum down 1%, down to 927, and once again, palladium bucks the trend, up for the week, $2, 863. Meanwhile, copper gave back entirely all of its gains from last week, lost almost 2.5% to close at 255. We commented last week that this is the off season for copper. There was a forward curve flattened over the week, and this was despite some strong Chinese numbers. So, this is the summer season, and we would not expect a lot of moves, I think, in the base metals over the summer.
Yeah, moving on to energy, some favorable news for oil.
Yeah, I don't know really if there was any real unfavorable news, kind of the same old news. Oil lost 2.5% to close at 44.69. Another bad week, 4 in a row now. This is the low for WTI since election week and since the OPEC Ruski production cuts. We're just still in a glut of oil. This does raise some concern. If oil stays below $50 a barrel, that's kind of the magic U.S. shale oil bullish price. So we might see some drilling start slow down. That said, rigs are up another 11 this week. Meanwhile, uranium essentially flat, but it did close up 25 cents over the week to close above $20 at 2013.
Moving on to currencies, dollar off a tad bit, euro pretty flat, but the loonie actually had a pretty good week.
Yeah, really interesting markets here, currency markets. The dollar is in a bearish phase. There's no doubt about that. It is really the only thing that seems to be reacting to these goings on in Washington, and that's because they lead to uncertainty. So dollar lost a bit, down to 97.13, lost 25 cents. Euro was essentially flat at 1.12. But the loonie surged this week, gained almost 2%, despite the cratering of oil price. And I was pretty puzzled about that when I did some research. So midweek, Tuesday, actually, I think, the Bank of Canada, the chairman of the Bank of Canada came in and gave very bullish comments on a rate hike increase in the near future. And that sent the loonie surging. And then it's got to be more than that, right, Rob? So it looks like the shorts on the loonie really got squeezed this week. So that was a phenomenon. Basically, it looks to me like specs in the market got squeezed.
And heading over to the markets, U.S. markets relatively flat. As you said, the news was pretty well priced in.
Well, it appears certain that the U.S. markets are ignoring the deep state swamp and what's going on in Washington. Dow closed an all-time high today, 21,384, up 0.5%. S&P 500 was flat over the week, closed at 2432 for 0% gain or loss. NASDAQ had another poor week, off almost 1% as the techs continue to get hit. down to 61.50. It's quite curious to me. Low volatility. Certainly, as we've alluded to, U.S. markets are ignoring all this geopolitical intrigue that's going on all around the world right now. But this is world markets remain very strong. Emerging markets have been the best performers this year. So this rally and this continued bullishness in the stock market is very broad based.
Yeah, and winding that pair, then the venture off that same 1.9, the loonie was up.
Been a very curious week for the venture exchange, as we've alluded to. We've had the summer doldrums started in the mid to late spring. They continue. Volumes continue to drop. I looked at the first 4.5 days this week, and we were at volumes lows that we haven't seen since the depth of the bear market. That all changed in the last 15 minutes of the market today when the GDXJ, which we mentioned before, was finally rebalanced. And the volume more than doubled in the last 15 minutes, and the index was up 5 points. That said, it still closed at 776, down, as you alluded, 1.9% for the week. I don't look for the venture exchange to have much of a summer, and I think we really have to look forward to September before we're going to see some rally. But that said, Rob, as contrarians, this could lead some really interesting buying opportunities as we progress into what's normally known as the summer doldrums.
Well, thanks again, Mickey. Have a great weekend as always.
Likewise, Rob.